Okay, Commissioner.
Okay. Very good. Well, we'd like to welcome everyone out to our Iron County Commission meeting dated this Monday, the 13th day of April, 2020. We have Commissioner Blake and Commissioner Alma via electronic means, and welcome them to this. And we have other participants on calling in as well. For those who are watching on YouTube, we welcome you. Hope your families and yourselves are well, that you're healthy and safe. We appreciate you tuning in. We'll begin today with an opening prayer offered by our auditor, Dan Jessen, and following that, Bruce Anderson will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we are grateful for this day. We're grateful for the opportunity we have to meet together and conduct the business of the county. We're grateful for this great country and the people that we have and that work so diligently to keep things running at this time. We ask a special blessing on our land and on our people, that we might be able to endure this hardship that we are currently struggling with well. We may come through it strong, and that it may be something that strengthens us and makes us ultimately better in the long run. We ask a blessing on those that are struggling with all the different effects caused by this pandemic, that they may return to health, wellness, and normalcy as soon as possible. We're grateful for everything we have, and we say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thanks, Dan.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
United States of
and
America,
to the republic
and to the republic
for
which it stands,
one nation,
one nation,
under God,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty
indivisible,
and justice for all.
liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We apologize for a little delay. We just had a few kinks to work out, but we appreciate our clerk setting this call up and all he's done to make sure we're able to do this meeting live like this. And we'll now move. Now, Commissioner Blake and Adams, can you hear okay now? You good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I'm good.
Great. Thank you. Okay. So we'll go ahead and approve our minutes dated March 9th of 2020. Is there any discussion to those minutes, any corrections or discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I would move for approval of the minutes dated March 9th, 2020. Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the Iron County Commission meeting minutes of March 9th, 2020. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Let's see, we're going to forego the departmental reports. We may go ahead and do that next meeting, depending on what happens. But we'll now move into a public hearing, and we'll go. Who's going to discuss that? Is Reed?
Reed, yes.
Are you on, Reed?
Yes, I am.
So Reed Erickson will go ahead and discuss the. We'll go ahead and declare a public hearing, and Reed, go ahead.
Let me do just a brief introduction. John, I don't know if you have up the PDF file that I gave to the commission that shows some maps, and it shows the general area of this and a few details of the property. This is a 5-acre parcel that is located on the Iron Springs Road that is zoned currently A20. They are interested in this. The applicant is SpeedLink LLC. It's a company that does computer service and works on computers and provides computer networking support and service. And they have this property that they would like to demolish the older building that's been on the property for a long time. It's and build a new building. They've applied for a building permit and are ready to move forward with that building. And it would be a great business opportunity there. But because the zoning is not conducive to that business and the size of what they want to do, it is adjacent to light industrial on the south across the highway. It's adjacent to Cedar City on the east side of the property. The Cedar City general plan calls for that property to be industrial in the future as it's annexed. And so it's compatible. It's right next to Port 15. And so a light industrial zoning is compatible with the surrounding land uses there and the future land uses that the city intends as the property annex. They're not able to annex at this time because they can't make a sewer connection, and they have their own well and water system and are really not interested in annexing. We did get comment from the city that they had no problem going forward with this as zoned light industrial. We have a recommendation from the Planning Commission to a favorable recommendation to rezone this property light industrial. We went through the criteria for zoning, looked at all of the issues there, and the Planning Commission determined that it is conducive to a light industrial use in that area and felt like that would be a good recommendation. So I'll keep it simple. Ask any questions. If you've gone through the slides there, you can kind of see where the property is and see if there are any issues related to that you might have questions about.
Looks good. I don't have any questions.
Yeah, I don't have any questions either. I reviewed the documents. It looks good.
As I did too, Reed. It looks good to me as well. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, is there, John, with this public hearing, are we allowing people to call in?
Yes.
Have we got that set up to where folks can call in?
What we've done is said for people to call my office number.
Okay.
Let me just double check and make sure that we haven't received any phone calls.
Okay. I would like the minutes to reflect that Mike's tie, Commissioner Blake's tie, matches his pajama bottoms.
They worked hard.
Got to have fun with this, don't we, Mike?
You know what? You got to find the humor in this whole thing. This is funny, and I don't want to waste time, but as I was getting ready this morning, my son came in my room. He also had on a pair of shorts and a dress shirt, and he goes, "Look, I have a job interview." And I stood up and I said, "Look, I have a commission meeting. We're dressed the same." So
That's great. Is there any comments here? We've got a few folks here in the room. Any news from anybody?
I'm just waiting to hear back from Chanel.
And if somebody does call in late, we'll give them a chance to comment later if we need to.
I might just mention that there were no comments or no one at the public hearing for the Planning Commission.
Okay.
And that was done in
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
in the March meeting, so there's plenty of time that they've had to process that as well.
Okay.
There's
thank you.
one voicemail that Chanel's trying to check
Okay.
right now.
All right. Well, let's move on, and we'll come back to that if we get to that. So we'll go ahead. Seeing no other comments, pending maybe some that may come in later, we'll give folks a chance to comment later if we need to. But we'll declare the public hearing closed, and entertain a motion.
Hey, I move approval of the zone change from agricultural 5 acres on the north side of Iron Springs Road, west of Port 15, as described and explained by our county planner.
second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded for the approval of a proposed zone change from agriculture 20A-20 to light industrial LI, located at approximately 638 North Iron Springs Road, Cedar City, Utah 84721. approximately 5 acres located within the new quarter, northeast quarter, section 11, township 36 south, range 12 west, Salt Lake Basin and Meridian, Iron County, Utah, APN number E-165-3. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Reed. Appreciate that.
Thank you, commissioners. Appreciate it.
And there was no comment. That
Okay.
voicemail was something else.
Very good. Thanks, John. So we will now go to our public appointments portion of the meeting with public comments, if anyone has a comment. Seeing none, we'll move on to item number 3, request for deferral of property taxes or possible forgiveness of taxes due to failure to apply for abatement because of medical problems. John?
And I will speak to that.
Okay.
I've been in contact with these folks most of the week, and she's homebound, but this gal had some problems, and she had someone helping her who was really stealing from her. And she thought she had filed for abatement in 18 and 19. She had been on a partial abatement. This year she'll qualify for the circuit breaker, which will cover everything. But unfortunately, she's accumulated about $3,000 in owing taxes and would go to tax sale this year. She's got a niece that's been helping her, and what we're asking for is a possible forgiveness of some of the back taxes that may have been abated, and then a possible deferral to be able to make payments throughout this next year. She is on Social Security and has very little income. She's in the process of asking for a loan for the deferral. And it occurs to me, I don't have all that paperwork with me. Okay, here's some of it. So the total amount owing was $30.41. The annual tax
$3,041, John?
$3,041.05 as of today.
Okay.
Yep. Up until this year, the abatement would have covered half. Due to some bookkeeping errors, there were, for example, there was a $20 owing in 2015, which now puts her in to the 5-year mark to be losing her house at tax sale this year. The amount for 2016 was $340. 17, the new amount was $461, and then in 18 and 19 is when she failed to apply, and that was $740 and $806 respectively. With penalties and interest, it brings the total to $3,041.
So 18 was what? 740?
Oh, sorry. 18 was $740 and 34 cents.
Okay.
19 was $806 and 27 cents.
Okay.
So
And that's
yeah.
So $20 in 2015, $340 in 2016, $461 in 17, $740, 34 and 18, and 806, 27 and 19. Is that
You got
correct?
it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what is she asking to?
And it's a little nebulous, but basically asking for partial forgiveness of some of that. She was being taken advantage of by a family member, and she remembers having applied. I spoke with her several times last week at her home, and she remembers having applied, but the paperwork never made it to us. Christine in the auditor's office processes that, and she never received it.
This is Alma. I think that I would recommend that anything that she could have applied for, but it didn't happen because of the extraneous circumstances, that we forgive that. In other words, those taxes wouldn't be due because she would have had that filed. And anything that doesn't fall under that, I think that, you know, I'd be fine with giving her deferral contract or agreement so she could pay that over the next year. I assume she wants 1 year. Is that right, John?
That's correct, yeah. Okay, so if you were to apply that logic, then 18 and 19 would have the total taxes for those 2 years were $1,546. So half of that would be $773.31. If that was the direction you want to go, so that would be the amount that would be forgiven. Would be $773.31.
If she had filed the paperwork,
Correct. Yeah.
because it's usually 50%. Or
Yeah. So she would have gotten a 50% abatement in those years. From now on, I'm told by Christine that she would qualify for the circuit breaker, which would be 100%. So in other words, as long as she applies from now on, she actually shouldn't owe any taxes, have any new taxes. And so, but if we go by what Alma says, then we would have.
we would be forgiving the 50% of 18 and 19, which is $773.31.
Yeah, which would leave $2267.75
as a balance.
owing, with a monthly payment of $188.98.
Oops.
Well, I move that we make the motion simple, that we forgive, in this case, can't remember her name,
We haven't mentioned it.
Claudia, okay, this lady, that we forgive $773.31, which is the amount that would have been abated if she hadn't had the situation with not being able to get her application in, leaving a balance of $2,267.75, which we would allow her to pay in a deferral agreement with monthly payments of $188.98 for the next 12 months.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, just one question on the motion. I think we're off by 1 penny, John. So if you add the $773.31 plus the $2267.75, that's 304,106. Was it 304,105 or 06? I think we're just off 1 cent.
3041.05.
Okay, so we're off. So
And we got a half a penny.
so we're probably rounding somewhere, maybe.
So let's see. I had 2267
67,
and 74 and a
$74.
half
Okay.
a penny.
So we'll just say 74. So okay,
Okay, so we'll round down on the.
we'll round down if you're okay with that, Alma, to amend your motion.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's been moved and seconded to forgive the taxes that would have been abated to the tune of $773.31, which leaves a balance of $2,267.74, which would equate to a $188.98 monthly payment. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, item number 4, discussion regarding auditor's 2020 delinquent tax sale, presented by Dan Jessen.
Good morning, Commissioners. John, I just powered on this computer here, so while it's booting up, we'll have our discussion on the tax sale, and then, of course, I'll need you to switch over to that for my presentation for item 5. Tax sale, I asked John to put me right behind that other item that you just discussed, deferral of property taxes. There's been quite a conversation amongst the auditors. Love it.
Do you want me to do it here?
No, I think
Maybe-
let's
maybe see
give
if
it a
it
shot and see if it's going to finish.
Okay.
There's been quite a discussion amongst the auditors. As you know, that in May we have our tax sale. We are required by law to have that in May or June, and we're kind of between a rock and a hard spot, given our social distancing and not gathering. Usually we pack way too many people into this room and have that tax sale, which obviously we can't do, but yet by law we have to do it. And so we have some different approaches that county auditors and clerk auditors have been looking at across the state. And I should say I have talked with the legislative committee with UAC. You may or may not know there was a recent letter that was sent by UAC to the governor and the president of the Utah Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives, talking about issues that the counties need dealt with in the emergency legislative session. And it's a pretty good list, pretty in-depth. And we have asked, as county auditors, to ask them to relax some of the state statutes, allowing us to delay the tax sale or hold the tax sale. Some auditors have taken the step of saying we're not going to have one by virtue of the fact that the auditor is going to pull. So they're going to have a tax sale. It's just that they'll pull all of the properties from it and not do that on account of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Do what, like strike into the county or just?
Just pull them and delay them until the following year. And I've had some mixed feelings on that. For one, our county, it looks a little bit differently on a tax sale than a lot of counties. A lot of counties, they may have 20 properties. A good number of them are houses. We have hundreds, and the majority of them are lots out in the West Desert that are very low valued, or what we would call a junk lot, where they're typically going to be stricken off to the county. So I haven't been desirous to cancel the tax sale. Not to mention, just like the discussion that I was having with Mike Edwards, if we cancel it, then next year is going to be twice as big. Not to mention, really the damage done by the economic problems that we're facing now will rear its head in the tax sale 5 years from now. And if we cancel it now, then in 5 years, when the impact of it really hits, then we've set a precedent that says that we're going to not have a tax sale anytime there's a financial impact, which that's kind of the definition of what causes a tax sale. So I've been looking at ways to move that forward and still have a tax sale, yet follow the social distancing and the meeting guidelines and all of that stuff. In short, what I am looking strongly at is having a virtual tax sale online. And I have started discussions, and I haven't contractually engaged, but I have engaged a company called Bid4Assets that they have been doing public surplus sales for 30 years. They started doing government public seizure assets for the federal government, and then that was about 30 years ago, and then they moved into tax sales for counties, and that's one of their niche options that they offer, and they are really, really good at it. And the advantage of this is that we can still do this. We can do it virtually, but one of the problems is in the state code it says that we're supposed to do it. We're supposed to notify that it will be done at the courthouse at a specific time and date. And so doing it online doesn't really fit that criteria. So I have asked, and it is in the letter to the state, and there was a unanimous agreement with the legislative committee to allow us to be able to do it virtually. So I'm cautiously optimistic that they'll rubber stamp it and we'll be able to do this virtually. And if it works well this year, then I don't see why we wouldn't continue to do it virtually in the future.
So Dan, I think when I go to an equipment, if there's a bankruptcy of a cabinet shop, I've gone to many of these silent auctions where you just get online, you look at the piece of equipment, you bid on it, it could be open for 2 or 3 days.
Yeah,
they can bid on it, and then you just kind of finalize the bidding here for a few minutes and then
Yeah.
you sell it.
We have total control, and the tax sale company does all of the legwork. They do all the registrations up front, the deposits. We can look and see what the list is. We can scrub properties off as they get sold, and they have a deed wizard, which at the end of the thing, it gives us a database document that we can mail merge and print the deeds. I mean, it is really slick. Like I said, they've been doing it for years and years with a focus on county government doing tax sales. So,
You might find you like it better. Then.
oh, I think we will. I mean, tax sale day around here is a little bit of a nightmare. We have the treasurer's office working overtime. We're issuing bid numbers. It's a little bit chaotic. We have our attorney here to make sure that we don't fall on our face. We have the sheriff here to break up fights. I mean, these aren't exactly the favorite day around here, but I think we're gonna like it. But again, we're moving forward cautiously because at the way the current code is written, I don't think that we can legally do it. Of course, if it comes right down to it, we're going to have to break some law, whether it's meeting together and breaking our social distancing mandate from the governor, or doing it online versus at some point that may be the less the least evil of all those. But if we can get that barrier removed, then I think it'll be a great option. So again, to reiterate, I think we want to be sensitive to people who are impacted and maybe consider deferrals. For example, if there's homes on there, in most years we work overtime to help them get, family to help them out, get them paid or whatnot ahead of time. So we may want to be sensitive more than in a normal year, but I would really like to move forward with the tax sale one way or the other, and this is the method that I'm looking at strongly. So I think it is kind of more of an auditor call, but we definitely got to work with legal, and I want the blessing of the commissioners. So what do you guys think about that?
I think it sounds great. Commissioner Blake and Adams, what do you think? Did we lose them because of the updates?
Mike? Paul? Not Paul.
Oh, let me.
Alma? No, what's updating is this computer that's right here.
Oh, okay.
Let's see.
You good with that, Alma?
Yes, I was just waiting for Mike to finish. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. We have to think positive. This is one of those positive things that's going to come out of this pandemic, and probably something that we'll use going forward. It'll be a lot better. If we can get forgiveness for going against the statute a little bit, whatever we need to do there, hopefully to be able to get permission to go forward. But I think it's a great idea.
We need to.
I think if you said something, Mike, we didn't hear you.
Oh boy. So I just said, especially looking at the issue of this problem being compounded in the years to come, I would be hesitant to cancel the tax sale just because we don't need the headache in the years to come. I would echo Alma saying, out of this frustrating time, I think there's going to be good things come out that help us streamline our processes in the future. It sounds like this is one of them.
Good. I wholeheartedly agree. And while we're waiting for that computer to finish up, unless there's any other discussion on the tax sale stuff,
I think we're all good.
Mike, did you have anything?
No.
Look at the letter that UAC sent. It's good. They're looking at a lot of different things that affect counties, county clerks with elections, law enforcement, jail, contracting, county assessors, the multi-county assessing levy. There's a lot of potential ripples and effects of this that we've asked for the legislature to look at. This was just a small one, but I guess it's not small if you think of it that way. But and also One other bit of update while we're waiting for the computer. We have started tracking all of the COVID-19 related expenses for the county. I spent some time with George. Well, we weren't together, but we were on the same training from FEMA so that we can get set up as a recipient through FEMA. Currently, what we're looking at is a 75% reimbursement of direct COVID-19 related expenses by the county. And so working with the department heads that have some of those expenses, and then my office, it's kind of vague what we can ask for reimbursement. For example, one of the sections says law enforcement. So what does that mean? Another part says overtime related to COVID-19. So we've been tracking everything that we think would fit. For example, if we have a law enforcement officer that is being quarantined and there's overtime shifts to cover that person's shift, we're tracking those. As our emergency manager, George, has been spending money to some degree for this, we've been tracking those expenses. I don't think that since we have our public health department, we have a levy, and the public health department is a multi-county effort. They are spending money and will apply for funds. That won't necessarily come through us. So there isn't a huge amount of funds that we are going to be, or expenses that we're going to be tracking, but we will be tracking and requests for reimbursement. I think George will tell you that there's some pressure to try and get the president to bump that up from 75% to 100%. So anyways, we're working with that. Of course, the back end pencil pushers, we do all of this legwork after the fact to try and account for every penny. But the real damage that's going to be done to Iron County will be on a revenue standpoint, and that's what we're going to talk about next on my financial impact analysis. But we are tracking things for the time being on expenses.
Thanks, Dan.
I just have one question going back as far as the considerations to change the laws. Is that something that's going to be taken up in this special session of the legislature?
Yes.
Okay.
And I better give a shout out to Brandy Grace. She's the CEO of Utah Association of Counties. She has been on the task force. She's actually been an active member in the task force for the governor and the lieutenant governor on COVID-19. So we actually have more representation than we normally would for her being involved in a lot of that. So UAC has been right on top of everything with this, and they've really been earning their money that they get from the counties. So it'll be interesting to see. I'm sure that the legislature will push back on some of these things, and some of these things may not be good ideas. Other things will be hopefully a rubber stamp, and it'll allow us some flexibility. On this one with the virtual tax sale, I'm hoping that'll be a permanent thing. That's just like modernizing the code, just like we do with electronic meetings or anything else. So, hey, John, what do you think?
I just checked it. It was, let's look here.
Why don't we just go to Bruce? You don't need any kind of slideshow, do you, Bruce? Talk about tires. Should we just go to Bruce for a minute, Dan, until that
Bounce
finishes?
back.
Or is it?
Yes, it's still, yeah.
We had our computer decide to do an update on us right in the middle.
If you could just put that in and I could still control it.
We can.
Oh, okay.
Let's do that.
Okay.
Just do that. Okay.
Oh, you're gonna need my.
Yeah. What's it called?
COVID-19 financial impact analysis.
Fair enough.
It has financial impact analysis. So I guess while John is bringing that up, of course now it's at 96% complete, but
No, I'm not.
you never know what that means. Well, John is bringing this up. There's been a lot of speculation. Paul is very active on social media. I'm not as active, but we have people that are questioning, what does this mean? Or the, biggest question really is the government see less tax revenue? Are they just going to increase our taxes? How does it affect the government? And really, it varies from county to county. We have different revenue streams. We have different expenses. It varies from city to city and state to state. State government is different than county government. We have different revenue streams. And so I wanted to do an impact analysis. To be clear, I'm not predicting the future. The point of this is I wanted to show what sources of revenue that we have that we rely on are sensitive to market downturns, and what revenues are not sensitive that we can rely on, and really some different scenarios as to how this could potentially impact the county. We run, at one point we're up to about a $50 million budget. Now we're down to about a $46 million budget. And so we want to keep an eye on this and make sure we don't get caught shorthanded and behind the curve trying to react too late and have to do layoffs or something like that. We want to keep an eye on things as they come down the pike at us. So having said that, so this is online as well?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, they can hear you, but they can see that.
So this is our new reality, as we all know. I refer to it as this. We're all living in this separate side reality, but we don't get to choose. We have a lot of uncertainty, and not to just ask a bunch of questions, but I want to point out the things that are still uncertain, and I'm not going to try and predict them, but I want to point out the things that could potentially affect the economy and local governments. Number one thing is how long will the social distancing and other preventative measures last? How gradual will they be released? When will a vaccine or other treatments be introduced to combat the virus? Will the summer temperatures effectively stop the virus, and will it resurge in the fall, and to what effect? And I'm not going to get into speculating on the biology or the virus stuff. We're just simply talking about the economic fallout. But of course, these are totally related. The policies and the public psyche affect our financial situation. How long will the economy be in a deep freeze? And I use the analogy that the longer that we are frozen.
Sorry. They were trying to get it on there.
The longer we artificially freeze the economy, the more tissue, if you will, the analogy, that will be lost due to frostbite. What will it look like on the other side? I watch the stock market and all of the articles, and the leaders of these big firms that are running models. Yet last week we had the stock market went on a 5-day upward tear with all this negative news, and then over the weekend we had positive news about OPEC Plus coming to an agreement. And what happens? The stock market dives. It's very erratic, and so nobody really knows. But what we do know is, on the other side of this, what is going to be there? Earnings, as they start to come in, are going to give the markets a wake-up call. And how many people will go back to life as normal once we get over the COVID-19, whether it's by vaccine or whether it's by herd immunity or whether it's by relaxing of social distancing? Will people spend like they used to spend, or will they be more conservative with their spending? So about 70% of America's GDP is made up of consumer spending, and consumers are fickle, right? What is their psyche going to be at the end of this? Are they going to be wanting to save because they remember what they dealt with? Are they going to have a bunch of pent-up demand? They're going to go out and spend. They're going to go to the restaurants in mass, or are they going to be more reticent to wait? Are they going to continue to build that new house that they were looking at? Or are they going to do a wait and see? If everybody goes into a wait and see mode, then what happens is it literally creates the recession. It's like it's a downward spiral. And then as businesses don't have the revenue, then they have to lay off more. That's how recessions start. It's a domino effect. So everybody at the first of this was hoping that we could get over this very quickly and we could just unpause and go back to the way it was. The question is what does that look like as we slowly unthaw? What will fear and uncertainty look like? Another big unknown is we are pumping trillions of dollars into the economy. That is going out to stimulus packages. That's going out to weird earmarks. But a good chunk of that is going to the American people. And will that effectively give us a pause button? What will happen with those dollars? Will people spend those dollars? Will other people pay their mortgage? We didn't have that. So with the last 2008 recession, we did a bunch of bailouts, but they went to big banks, they went to automotive, but they didn't go necessarily to the populace. So we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. So there's a lot of debate as to what the shape of the recession will look like and the duration. So basically you have a V, which everybody at the front end was hoping, the economists, which means it was going to bounce down for a quarter and then bounce right back to where it was and continue. A U is going to be like a multi-year thing where we see this large dip that ultimately comes back. An L is the worst case scenario, and that's where it just drops and it never bounces back. It just takes a new line horizontally out. Or a W or an X or a Q, you can think about all these different things. I think you're going to see the stock market looks like a W on steroids where it's bouncing all over the place. And then, of course, to give a nod to our old Secretary of the Defense, what are the unknown unknowns? With the ripple effects, down the road, we'll say, oh, well, we should have seen the fact that this was brewing, You had this morning a pork supplier announced that it closed its factory. What are going to be the repercussions for that in farming? And I mean, there's all these ripple effects that move throughout the economy, and this is just a huge shock. And so it's hard. It's easy to see the things that are right in front of our face, but it's hard to know the side effects that are going to circle back around with this industry or that industry, or this shortage of materials is going to affect this supply line, which is going to then put a specific industry out of business or cause them to have to change and innovate. Anyways, so getting on to Iron County. John, I've lost control.
Oh, that's because, hey, you're going through my emails. Good job.
Hey.
All right, no, not yet. Try that. Nope. Sorry. Now try it.
Was I that boring? I just put you to sleep. No, I'm joking.
No, I was trying to make my computer do other things, and I forget that you've got control too.
Okay. Anyway, so the big question, and I just wanted to set things up generally before we talk about Iron County. Ignore the stock market. We're just going to talk about what affects Iron County revenues and obviously local government. It's going to affect cities somewhat similar, and the state to different degrees. This was a graph from my 2020 budget presentation. This is the revenue distribution as a whole, aggregated all of our funds together of where our money comes from in Iron County. 35% is property tax, 19% in fines and fees, 11% sales tax, 11% PILT. That's a misleading number there, and I'll explain. Tourism tax, 7%. That's both tourism taxes together. Grants, 7%. Reimbursement and rents, 5%. Interest, 3%. Miscellaneous, 2%. I went through and I identified the revenues that we have that are market sensitive. And
Sorry. I was trying to sneak in. I had.
will somebody go and hold his hands behind him?
Okay, give that a try.
Does that mean you're not paying attention, John?
That's exactly what it means. I don't know what happened to my graph.
Okay.
I don't know what happened to my graph here. Something is.
Esther and hold the phone up too.
Okay.
We need to.
What's that, Alma?
I didn't say anything. No.
I told John to sit on his hands.
Somebody should. That's what my teachers always told me too.
I don't know what's happened to my graph here, John.
Yeah, that's all there is, it looks like.
So my graph is not showing the revenue streams that are sensitive. Something with switching it over, but basically we have sales tax and tourism tax and interest income are some of the ones that show up on here, which you're not seeing, which are unstable, and we're going to talk about those. First of all, we have safe and stable revenues. So what you're looking at is basically a 15-year look at property tax. In the light blue is the county's general fund property tax levy. In the gold is the municipal services fund property tax, which was year one was 2008. That's why there's no data before that. You'll notice there's 2 years that are anomalies. 2016 is that year I always talk about, and everybody looks at me with like a deer in the headlights. That was this anomalous year, which I won't go into, but let's pretend that it wasn't there, and you'll see this nice stable growth with property tax. That's one reason. Constitutionality of it, the question of property tax aside, one positive virtue of property tax is that it's very stable. You see 2008, 2009, there was not this crazy dip as the economy did what it did. Property tax is very stable. And that's a good thing if you're primarily funded with property tax, which we are. But less and less do governments rely on property tax because of the truth in taxation process. It's so painful politically and difficult to go through that process that governments, unfortunately or fortunately, however you look at it, have relied on other fees, increasing sales tax, increasing fees for this, and instituting new fees for that, doing transfers from enterprise funds because they do not want to raise property tax. That makes property tax a smaller and smaller source of our revenue. The disadvantage of that is it makes our revenue more volatile and more sensitive to the economy. I didn't do a grant. I did do one of these for PILT and for our fines and fees, but they look very similar to this. Fines and fees. When I say that, for example, we have our sheriff's department out writing tickets, right? And those fees are reliant upon how many tickets they write. And how many tickets that our court system, the justice court, process, because we get a piece of that. It is volatile, but it is not the economy that drives it. It is other factors. We recently saw there was this big, huge drop, and it came from the fact that we took one deputy off the freeway who was very proficient in catching speeders and catching drug running and all of these things. When we pulled him off the freeway, our revenue dropped. Had nothing to do with the economy. And so not that there isn't a possible effect from that. For example, if we're not doing proactive policing due to COVID-19 and they're not writing tickets, then we will see that revenue drop. But by and large, most of our fines and fees.
While you're there, Dan.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. Right now, well, for the last 3 weeks, traffic's been way less. So, and I don't expect that that's going to continue for a long, long time. But I'm guessing that there's less tickets being written because there's just less traffic out there. So it can have an immediate effect, but it will probably level out.
Well, and our court system is largely shut down too, and they're funded partially by tickets, but they will resurge as Mike Edwards and I were talking about. They will have a backlog, and they will get back to it. But yeah, there will be impacts. I talk about those unknown unknowns. We'll have some things that haven't reacted to previous downturns in the economy that this time they react, and so in our data we haven't looked at it. One of the things we have never had in the history of modern economics is an engineered shutdown of the economy. We've never, on purpose, pressed the pause button. And so there'll be things that we have never expected before that will happen. Anyway, so that's it for our safe and stable revenues. These are the revenue sources that are more variable and less safe that react with the market. Sales tax, tourism taxes, gas tax, and building permit fees. We're going to talk about each of those. I lost control, John.
Oh, dang me. I can't get away with anything. Okay.
No, you can't.
Give it a shot.
I'm actually not even doing my normal presentation. I'm just, as soon as I see you do something, I just skip everything I was going to say and expose your shenanigans. So sales tax is the biggest concern by far. Sales tax is tied directly to consumer spending. The formula, the way it's calculated for local government is this. 50% of the revenue we get is based on the sales tax that is spent or that is collected in our geographic area, right? And then the other 50% of it comes from the total sales tax collected in the state and divvied out based on population. So if you are a bedroom community, which our municipal services district is, John, you can do all kinds of stuff because I'll be on this for a second.
That's okay. You misspelled stimulus.
Oh, did I? No, I didn't. That's actually the way that they spelled it back in Greek times.
Okay. Sorry, I don't mean to derail you.
There's supposed to be a little inye or some umlauts over the O there.
Okay.
Anyways, if you have a bedroom community that has like almost no stores that are doing business, you're still going to get sales tax because of the population that lives there, and that's why they do that, to try to equalize out the urban and rural counties and cities. Anyways, so it's directly tied to customer spending. We know that this will take a hit. Everybody hopes that'll be a 1-quarter hit or a 2-quarter hit. There's some industries that are thriving. If you'll notice, Walmart's stock price it's gone up and it's gone down, but it hasn't actually dropped lower than it was before this thing has happened. Walmart, these grocery stores have been selling out like crazy, and you have some businesses that are doing, mobile delivery and all these things. They are thriving. The net effect is still negative, no doubt, but it's not every single business has been impacted low. Amazon, as you remember, Utah struck a deal with Amazon about a couple of years ago that we are now charging sales tax on all Amazon goods. We'll get a piece of every one of those sales because of that and because of our population. So it's not all negative. You have all these effects, and some of them have a positive effect, some of them have a negative effect. We know the overall effect will be negative, and I'll show you the sales tax graph here in a second, what happened in 2008, but it's not all negative. Plus, you have now the effect of the stimulus. You have people who have lost jobs, and now they're going to get money in their pocket. They're going to buy groceries, pay the bills that they absolutely have to pay, and the ones that they don't have to pay, they won't pay, right? So some of that's still going to be spent on sales tax. Then you have people that haven't lost their jobs. They just got extra money in their pocket. As long as they don't get mentally worried or freaked out and want to increase their savings rate, a lot of them are going to spend that money. So we don't know what that effect is going to look like, and it's going to be different demographics, do different things with that money. This is Keynesian, I can't say that word right now. Keynesian economics at its core, the concept of putting money into the end user's hands and then stimulating the economy that way. The flip side of that is you do the trickle down. You give it to the businesses and hoping that they'll then pay their people more. This is Keynesian economics at its core. There is an inverse effect of a savings rate on GDP and spending, meaning when you model America's GDP, the higher the savings rate is, the worse it is for our economy. So obviously we know savings is a good thing. But if people save and don't spend, it creates this problem for the economy. Therefore, it has an inverse relationship. I had to put one little joke in here. So my wife is a
Keynesian, I can't say it. She's always spending herself out of depressions. So that's the goal here, right? Is we want to stimulate the economy. We want to get it into the end user's hands, and so they will spend it. Obviously, $1,200 if I'm a single individual that lost my job is not going to fix the economy, but it will have some sort of positive effect. This is the sales tax 2008 recession, what happened. Again, in blue you have our sales tax rate for the entire county, and then in gold you have the municipal service sales tax. That's a U right there. That's what you would define as a U recession. It's quite a beautiful thing in its predictability and its simplicity. You'll see our last few years have been great. The other thing you'll notice that is it bottomed out. It was about 15% drop from its high point. Will this recession look worse than that? Will it look better than that? Will it be a V? It'll pop down and pop back up. Will it drop 25%? Will it drop 5% because of the stimulus? I don't know. I can just show you what happened in 2008, and I can model it with some different things there. This was a percentage change on sales tax. As you can see, the last 10 years look pretty much like the national economy. Look like our job growth in the national economy, don't they? Okay, so now we get to tourism taxes. We have two tourism taxes. We have restaurant tax, which we call TRCC. That's made up of two drivers of that. We have our local spending, and we have our visitors or our tourist spending. Our tourism tax, TRCC, doesn't differentiate. Money spent in restaurants pay a specific percentage, and Maria could tell us all about that. And we collect a percentage that goes into Fund 28, and we spend that in a very specific way. And we have hotel taxes, which is our TRT, or stands for transient room tax. And you can imagine what's happening with these. There is still some restaurant spending going on right now, and hotel tax, there's nothing going on. I don't think we've ever seen anything like this. In fact, Maria said that this, as she was watching the numbers, it was similar to 9/11, when everybody was same reasons, right? Fear. Only this, we're actually being told not to go anywhere and not to stay anywhere. So tourism taxes, they haven't dropped to zero, but right now they're taking the hardest hit, even more than sales tax.
Dan, some of these hotels are renting rooms by the month now. Are they? Do they charge TRT on that? So
Yeah.
We'll get some from that.
We'll get some. There's obviously some rentals of the Airbnbs and some of those things. There's this interesting thing that happens. And again, it comes back to the policies. When is this going to be relaxed? But in tourism, there's this pent-up demand that happens. And we can pray and hope that this will happen. People, for example, next week, I'm supposed to be off on spring break with my family. My son's going on a mission here in the summer, and we were going to do a big family vacation before he leaves. And that's not happening. If things get relaxed, maybe we'll still do something. Maybe not. When we go, what are we going to do? Trust me, we weren't going to go to Europe. But say we were financially well off and we were planning on going to Europe. Now you have this crazy outbreak. And even when things get relaxed, do I still feel comfortable going out of the country? Probably not. I'm probably going to travel domestically instead. So you get this pent-up demand thing that goes on. And I'm going to show you a graph in a minute that shows you this. It's really interesting. So we'll talk a little bit about pent-up demand in a second. Finally, the biggest question is, what about the effect of fear, social distancing, once it does relax? Our biggest tourism things in Iron County are summer activities. It's the summer games. You notice the trend here? Shakespeare and other these big events where we get all these people together. Well, let's say that we figure out a way to open up the economy and everybody comes up with a plan to operate their business with good social distancing. Is summer games, now it's in July, is that going to happen? Are they going to find a way to do that? Are people going to travel? Are we going to get 80% of what we had, or 50%? Are they going to cancel it this year? You know, what about Shakespeare? Are they going to sell every third seat in a place? I mean, what does that look like? We just don't know. But
And I was on a call with President Wyatt and a few other leaders in the community, and they're planning right now. They're planning on the summer games in Shakespeare happening.
Good.
Until drop dead day, they have to cancel.
so they absolutely can't do it.
Right.
So they're gonna plan on
being
it.
very optimistic, which I'm very grateful for.
Yeah, good. Because that right there that will make or break our tourism tax for the year. Is those summer events.
Yeah.
What do they look like?
Their plan is to scale back on Shakespeare to bring in like 60 actors instead of 300. They'd have a scaled back schedule, but it's encouraging that they are planning to move forward with Shakespeare and summer games, and hopefully that will happen. They'll both happen.
Well, and maybe they extend the season a little bit. There's different creative ways. And again, if I live on the Wasatch Front and I was planning on going to Disneyland, which will Disneyland be open as soon as summer games? I would tend to think no. Maybe they go take in a play in southern Utah rather than go to Europe or go to Hawaii or go to Disneyland. They're going to have to pick their options. And so if we can have a way that is smart and practical and safe, we may have more demand than something else. Who knows? Again, big question marks. There is one thing to talk about tourism tax. And Paul very astutely asked this question. We do have one bond that is funded and paid for by our tourism taxes. It's the Shakespeare Center bond. It is a CIB loan, and CIB has said that they will let us apply for a deferral, which would basically restructure the debt and just ignore this year's payment. And I think we would just restructure, add a year on the back end or something like that. So we're going to want to look at that because we pay for that payment with these two taxes. One thing that Maria has said is once we are able to open things back up, she is going to need every penny to basically stimulate tourism. That's what these taxes pay for, is advertising and facilities. It's the TRT tax is her operational budget plus advertising. The TRCC is all special projects. So TRCC will probably get hit the hardest. I take that back. TRT will get hit the hardest, which is her operational budget. And obviously it's not going to go to zero. But had we known, maybe we wouldn't have paid off some of the debt we paid off with these fund balances. But our fund balances are not healthy like some of our others. We paid off a lot of the county's debt that could be paid off with these loans, and so we don't have these massive fund balances. We're just going to have to play it by ear and be very cautious, but we do need every penny that we have to try to stimulate the economy, try to get people to do tourism when that is available. So I think that I would recommend that we apply for at least a 1-year forbearance on that CIB loan that gets paid for by these. This was this was a perfect graph that showed the pent-up demand of travel. What we're specifically looking at here is the demand for outbound air tickets versus domestic room demand. So this was the SARS outbreak, which is similar. This is far worse. Not that that COVID-19 is worse than SARS. It's the effect on the economy is a totally of a whole different nature. But there was this pent-up demand. So what happened was international travel went way down, but you'll see that domestic room demand really didn't. Both of them spiked up after the end of the SARS outbreak. So there is a pent-up demand that happens, and hopefully people will resume, and they'll got to get out of the house after they've been locked up for a long time. This is our tourism tax, what happened in 2008. Again, I didn't have data to go back to 9/11. I would have had to get down into the paper records. We used a different software system that we do not have now, Cassell. The blue, you see the TRT rate increase that was done legislatively there. That's why that pops up there in 2007. The increase in 2016 was literally just demand. I mean, we just had a boom year, 2016. So you see the growth that's been happening there. You're getting up to 1.4 million in TRT tax, and that's what we expected to get in 2020. I don't have a 2020's budget. You see the restaurant tax is a little more stable, but you see both of them did a little dip in 2008. It wasn't as sharp as sales tax, but again, 2008 was an economic depression. It was a housing collapse. It had nothing to do with fear and psyche. It just had to do with people traveling and spending money at restaurants and hotel rooms. This is the percentage change, same numbers. Okay, gas tax. There hasn't been a lot of talk about this, but this is a big one for municipalities and all of local government, really. So you had this weird thing that happened in probably the worst timing on planet Earth. Saudi Arabia and Russia picked a fight with each other, OPEC Plus, right as the COVID-19 was about to happen. They basically broke their alliance and just flooded the market with crude. I have the graph there. You see what it did to pricing. I think we dropped like 65%, the price of a barrel. This has been playing out in the news. Yesterday, Trump helped with a deal between the two, and they agreed to cut 10 million barrels. The problem is now it's not a supply problem, which it was. It started as a supply problem. Now we have a demand problem. Nobody's driving. In fact, a lot of economists say, well, thanks OPEC Plus for cutting 10 million barrels. By the way, U.S. isn't cutting any. Mexico is cutting 100,000 barrels. But now we have a demand problem. There's nobody driving, and so this cut of 10 million barrels is probably not even going to do anything in the long run. Of course, Russia is saying that you're welcome, America. We just saved you 1.2 million jobs, is what Russia is out there touting this deal. But anyways, so when it gets back to gas tax, how does this affect us? What drives our gas tax is gallons purchased. Not exclusively because of the new law that just went into effect a year or two ago. Now there is some percentage parts of the tax fee, but largely we get so many pennies per gallon. So what we want is gallons sold. That's one of the problems with electric vehicles is they're not buying any gas, and so now all of a sudden you're not collecting fuel tax to work on the roads. So regardless of what's going on with gas prices and regardless of what's going on with OPEC and all these things, what affects Iron County's revenue and hence how we're going to repair roads, and we subsidize it with our general fund, that's why this is important, is how many gallons are being bought. And right now it's in the tank, so to speak. It's not as bad because our economy we haven't been completely locked down. We're one of 8 or 9 states that isn't. So there is still driving going on, but the roads are a lot more freed up. So the question is once this COVID-19 gets released and now we have super cheap gas, how many gallons are going to be sold? I would think that the COVID-19 is going to have a downward pressure because less gallons are being sold right now. When things are lifted and we have really cheap gas, we may sell more gallons than normal, so it may end up helping us. But a lot of those gallons are bought by tourists, and if tourists aren't driving, if they're not coming here from California, then it will impact us. Thank goodness we're not in Uintah County because when there's big gas shocks to the economy, you have their property tax is in a mess. Their whole economy suffers based on crude going up and down, and I know that the legislature is looking to help them out to the best that they can. So this is a cool graph. The yellow line is the gas price, the price of a gallon, and you'll see there's almost no correlation to what gas prices are doing and what our revenues are doing. Our revenues are in blue. You do see in 2009 there was a drop. Literally, people were not driving at the bottom of when the economy was dumped. There was a pullback in how many gallons people were buying. Other than that, it was fairly normal. You see why it gained in the last 4 years. That was the fuel tax increase and how it phased in and all of that stuff. So, again, we can't look back to the previous recession and see the impact on fuel, but you see right now we're getting about $2 million. We subsidize that by about another $1 million, and that's just to maintain our roads. That's not new construction. So if we take a big hit there, that means it's going to have even more of a burden on our municipal services fund, which is what we largely subsidize our road fund from. Lastly, I'll talk about building permits. This is tied to the local housing market. Specifically, we collect a building permit on a new home that's built and the value of that home. Those are the only two things that drives that. And this is a very volatile revenue. This is probably the most volatile one that we have. In fact, I'm going to scoot forward and look at that's what happened in 2008, which was a housing bubble. But we went from collecting more than $800,000 in 2006 down to $100,000 in 2011. That's a $700,000 swing that goes into our municipal services fund. This is real money, and this goes into the general pot that is a municipal services fund that we fund our sheriff's department and our building maintenance and our building inspector, and we have a bunch of things that are located in that fund. $700,000 is $700,000. It doesn't have to be spent any specific way. That's just revenue that we pay employees with and so forth. So, what does this look like to our local building market, which what runs that, right? Local demand, local new houses based on our population growth. There's probably some pent up demand, but a lot of new houses are speculative in nature, and so speculation gets hurt when the consumer psyche gets hurt, and so this is an unknown. Paul was talking to me this morning and says, there will probably be a delayed effect. It probably has to do with if the economy crashes and people, consumer confidence takes a hit, the people that may have been going to go out there on a limb and build a spec home may now decide to wait and see, right? That wait and see is what hurts us. One final comment. The Fed dropped interest rates. Now, these aren't the interest rates we pay. These are what they loan at the window that banks borrow, the overnight rate, right? They drop those to zero. We've never seen that happen ever. But usually interest rates follow that. So if interest rates do what we expect them to do, interest rates will come way down low. Now, when interest rates are low, that increases speculation. That increases people doing refinances, which don't affect our building permits, but people building homes and doing spec homes because they can borrow money for really low amounts. You can buy that $400,000 house if you have a stable income, and because you can get it so cheap, maybe now's the time to build. So that has a positive effect. Everything else has a negative effect. So what is it going to look like? Only time will tell. But there are multiple pressures on what's going on. I just wanted to point that out. Again, those were building permits. And by the way, 2015 was a high, and then you see it's kind of done another little U. These are really hard to forecast, by the way. Anyways, so I combined all of the revenues that are volatile, and I put together a couple of scenarios so you could see the ultimate potential impact to the county. Scenario A is identical, the percentage drops to 2008. Scenario B, it's less than 2008, what I'm going to call a little u, a lowercase u. It's not as bad as 2008. Scenario C is a dramatic shock followed by a rebound and then slow growth. Actually, I think I tweaked that one so that it's more of an L. So it just drops and then it kind of bumps back, and then we set on this new normal, right? This is what it looks like if you have the exact same as a 2008. Now keep in mind, this isn't the graph you're looking at is not the total revenue of the county. That's the combination of all of our revenues that are sensitive to market, right? The red is lost revenue versus a projected slow growth, which is what we were pretty much on. So that line across the top is assuming coronavirus never happened. That's how I would have forecast the next 5 years, right? So if 2008 recession happens again and the exact same percentages on those exact same revenues, that's what's going to happen. It's a $7 million loss over 5 years, which would be 3% impact to the total budget. Now, Washington County, I've talked to them. They expect far worse than this because they are hugely reliant on sales tax and tourism tax, far more than we are. The state's different picture. Cities are going to have different picture. Scenario B, that's 50% of the impact, which is about a $2.8 million loss spread over 5 years, a total decrease of 1.2 to our budget. Scenario C, this is this kind of this hybrid where we have a really bad year in 2020. It bounces back, not back to where it was, and then it has slow growth moving forward from that. Oh, I did do a scenario D with an L-shaped recession. That's what an L-shaped recession looks like. We have a major loss, and then it becomes our new normal, and then we just slowly grow from there. So which one of these is, and you know, it's only one of these possible four, right? The economy can only do one of those four. I'm joking. I just wanted to give you an impact of what this could look like from the county. And I'm sure there's probably a version of this scenario A that is twice as bad as the recession. So if it's twice as bad, that's $4 million total loss, and that's 6%, right? So when people ask, am I worried? Yes, I'm worried, but I'm not panicking. We're largely speaking very healthy overall as a county. Here's the problem. We have, 26 different funds that all have their own different unique sources of revenue, and some funds are going to be more sensitive to this than others. For example, our general fund, sales tax makes up 17% of its revenue. And we know and we know that sales tax was about 15% of the total. I mean, it in 2008 took a 15% hit. That means that 15% of our general fund's revenues, or 17% of our general fund's revenues, are going to be sensitive at 15%. So it probably won't hit general fund too bad. Fund 11 has sales tax and building permits. Remember how big of a hit building permits took? And Fund 11 subsidizes the road fund. So the bigger the hit to the road fund, the bigger the hit to Fund 11. So Fund 11 is actually a lot more sensitive to this than Fund 10. Our road fund, fuel tax is 58% of its revenue, right? So if it takes a big hit, then again, that's tough. We may not maintain as many roads next year. We may decide to dig into our savings and continue to maintain just as many roads as we had. You know, you usually try to do the things that hurt the most at the last, meaning laying off employees usually wants to be your last option. But, you know, at the end of the day, it becomes a lot of decisions. Do we maintain less roads for 1 year? Do we not hire? There's all these different options which we will look at in the fall as we deal with, 2021's projections of what do we want to do? Do we hold off on buying new equipment? That seems to be an easy one. Do we hold off on a big capital project that we're planning on doing? That seems to be an easy one. Before you talk about layoffs, right? You take out those things which in a normal year you would do, but this year we're going to hold on. Again, we become the ones that then help to hurt the economy by stopping to spend. Fund 24, 71% of Maria's budget comes from the TRT tax. Other than that, it comes from grants, basically. Grants and TRT. Fund 28, 98% of that fund is restaurant tax. So Now, we don't operate with that. We do special projects, which means we'll just have that much less money to do special projects. So, my recommendations are this. After looking at everything, I don't recommend that we do any budget adjustments. We open the budget, panic, pull stuff out. And we are financially strong. Unlike the federal government, we have been paying off debt and filling our allowable savings and our reserves, and we are financially probably stronger than Iron County has ever been. That's what you should do in times of good, right? We've had 10 great years, and we have our storehouses full, if you will. But I still think that our county departments need to be prudent. If there's something that's a questionable thing, they don't have to spend it this year, don't. Let's just hold off. Operate your department, do what you need to do, but if there's that thing that you don't need to do, don't. I'm going to keep an eye on revenues, sharper eye on it than I normally do. I'm going to keep watching stuff. I'm going to watch. There's a delayed effect with these things, and so, I don't know right now exactly what's going to happen. I mean, hopefully there's enough of a picture developing when it comes budget time in the fall, in September and in October when we're doing the budget, that we can get an idea of what is going to happen in 2021. I think we will know at least. What we won't know is a resurgence, and what would a resurgence do? And I don't think anybody is as worried about an economic impact as bad with a resurgence as they are with the first one. But we should have an idea of how bad a hit we took, at least in the short term by then. And we should have an idea of what the policies that we can plan on nationally and our state policies, and so we'll have a better idea that we can make a good decision. I would recommend, and I want to get the thoughts of the commissioners, we were planning on opening the budget and spending a couple of $1 million on our new fleet program. I don't think it's a great idea to do that right now, especially until we have an idea of what's going to happen. And I had one conversation with Paul, but not really much, and I haven't talked to Mike or Alma at all. But my thought is we put that on pause at least for a year, possibly 2. What do you guys think?
Well, as I've thought about it, I think that'd be very wise to hold off.
I thought about that. As you were talking, that's kind of the specific one expenditure that I was thinking of. With that being said, there might be a few vehicles out there that we've been kind of putting people off as far as getting a new vehicle because the new fleet program is coming. So overall, I think we got to put it off, but maybe we got to look at a couple of vehicles. Specifically, George's vehicle only made it partway to his destination the other day, then had to get towed the rest. There might be a couple of others out there but we maybe ought to look at replacing a few vehicles that are really necessary. I agree on holding up on the larger project.
I know with our sheriff's department, we have quite an aged fleet. We are buying 6, but 6 is what we would buy in a normal year. And
Right.
and that I know that, and then when they've had a wrecked one, in fact, we have that question we have to answer right now. We're going to get an insurance check, which will pay for 30% of a new one, but you can't go buy 30% of a truck, so we got to figure that out. I know Dell is pulling out his hair trying to keep vehicles underneath officers right now, so we do need to look at our vehicles, but to go out and spend a couple million right now, I don't think it's wise, especially since the bulk of that purchase would come from Fund 11, which I'm thinking is going to be a little bit more sensitive to this recession. So, okay, well, we'll continue to talk about that.
Dan, just so the public knows, this fleet purchase we're looking at, it's a one-time expenditure to get to that level. But after that, we're driving newer vehicles. It saves us money in the long term because we can buy a vehicle at state contract, actually drive it for 2 years and sell it for more money oftentimes.
Yeah,
And so-
it's
so
a wise thing. It's just cash is king, and do we want to let go of some cash right now?
Yeah, just so the public understands, that's kind of a one-time expense, and then it flattens out, right? And,
Yeah.
And we actually save money over the long term.
Yeah, it would save us hundreds of thousands a year in maintenance and things like that. So I think we'll definitely want to do it, but again, the
Right.
last thing you want to do is
I-
reduce your reserves right when.
I agree.
Anyways,
I think we're all.
I think we're all on the
I
same page.
agree. Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said as well. I don't think it would be prudent to go forward with the fleet program right now. However, it's definitely going to be something that will be beneficial in the future. And we had money. We're building a new road department shed, and we got space in the old building for the fleet program. So that's kind of money in the bank, so to speak, until we're ready to go forward. But I think we're smart to hold off for a while.
Okay. So, like I said, I'll continue to monitor the budget, and I'll send out an email to all the department heads. But if we could, I mean, there's some spending that's not happening just because we can't travel, we can't do trainings, we can't do a lot of the things we were planning on doing. I think Paul's going to want to look real closely with our. We spent a lot of money with our building department on upgrades and those things, and we'll want to just make sure we're wise, just like we always are. But right now, we'll want to, is this something we absolutely have to do right now? And if not, maybe we hold off. But if it's still prudent to do it, sometimes you jump over $1 to pick up a dime. So we want to make sure we still are smart with our decisions. So
Well, and the new road shed building that Commissioner Adams mentioned, we were fortunate enough to sell a building that we had there at the Main Street and Fiddler's Canyon for enough money to pay for that. So that was a nice thing. So.
And I think it's also important to point out that as we are spending money doing the things we need to do, a lot of that money goes to contractors and to small businesses that we do business with. And if we hold up, then that exacerbates the problem. So it's everybody being extra cautious that creates the new problem of the economy. So we got to keep that in mind as we do this. If we're impacted not as badly as some of the others, but then we overreact and we're extra careful, then we're actually we're contributing to the problem. So we want to make sure that we're smart, but we continue to operate and continue to do business with our local vendors. So that's it. That's my recommendations for the 2020 budget. For 2021, we'll take a really close look at the situation. If you look back at 2008, I'm going to go to this sales tax image. How did we get through that? Well, there was pause on new hiring. There wasn't any raises. And it was pretty much business as usual. If it looks like that and we do the same things, we'll just come through it smelling like a rose. In fact, I would argue that we probably were overcautious in 2008, which is why we had some of that really healthy fund balances that we had, because I don't know if the commissioners maybe had a sharp picture, and so we're being a little overcautious. So anyways, I'll just throw that out there. I'm not freaking
It
out.
was a tough time. Revenues were definitely down, and so we were very cautious. And I sincerely hope we don't have to reduce force, but we need to watch really close and see if we want to implement a hiring freeze at some point. But I sincerely hope we don't have to reduce force in any way.
And I will continue to get you guys good information so you can make decisions based on good data and not just shooting from the hip. But Iron County will get through this, and I think we'll be okay, assuming it doesn't turn into even a worse scenario, than I've even showed here. So I'm grateful to be an Iron County auditor rather than a auditor in some of these places that are being hit really hard or are just absolutely dead freezing everything. It would be panic time. I mean, it really would be rough. So I thank my lucky stars, and I think that we have things good. And I leave policy and politics to you guys. But that's pretty much all the information that I have. If there's any questions or thoughts or anything else, I turn that time back to you.
Well, I'd just like to say that as a commission, we're extremely grateful for Dan for his insight. He's brilliant with this stuff, and the graphs, the data, he can crunch it. He understands the markets, and I just really appreciate, Dan, your expertise in this area. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just echo that perfectly.
Ditto. Thanks, Dan, very much. That's very, very helpful.
And I think the public, I hope some of, on social media, there was some discussion over the weekend, and I hope those individuals are watching. If not, obviously this is recorded on YouTube, so folks can go back and watch this presentation. It'll be on there, John, won't it? This presentation, so people can watch it. That'll be great. So we can post that on. It might pay to even post this on our county Facebook page, and so people can see that. I think it'd be really good.
Let's get the link over to IT as well. Let's for our COVID-19 update page. Let's post this on there as well, so people can have access to it if they're using that link.
Any other discussion on that agenda item? If not, we'll move to item number 6, discussion of waste tire recycling bill HB 27, restrictions on disposal and transfer of tires. Bruce Anderson. Does anybody need a break before we do this? John had one on the agenda. Okay.
Thanks. Oh, you're knocking me over.
So really, this is just that the state has implemented, we cannot bury tires at the landfill anymore. There's a new Utah Waste Tire Act. It was actually started in 1990. But as far as landfills, we can accept up to it used to be 4 tires, now it's 12 from residents at a single time, but we can't bury them in the landfill. They all got to be recycled.
So if somebody's cleaning up their yard and they've got an old tire, they can't bring it to landfill anymore.
They can, but we're
can.
going to have to charge. We can't bury it.
You'll charge them, and then
Yeah,
you'll
we're
sell
gonna-
it to the recyclers.
Yep, and then we'll have to. Well, we don't sell them to the recyclers. It costs us money to take them there.
Oh, okay.
That's why we're going to have to start charging.
I see.
So I did the workup on it, and there's a place that accepts these tires in Fillmore, and it had cost us just about $9 a tire to take there, but there for the last I don't know how many years there's been $1 recycle fee on any of the tires that have been. Every time you go to the store and buy new tires, there's $1 recycle fee. That fund is built up now that the state's going to help us with part of that, getting them tires to the recycler. When I talked to him, I want to say it was $200 or $120 a ton to dump the tires there if we hauled them ourselves, and then $3 a mile to haul them is what I figured it at. But really, the system that's in play is already there with the private tire sellers. When you have new tires put on your car, then they keep them, and then they send them to a recycler of their choice. I believe there's 6 in the state. That's really where I'd like to keep this. They charge $2 or $3 a tire to do that when you get your tires put on. I'd like to be $1 higher than what they are, just to keep that flow going with the private individuals. If you have tires in your yard and you want to get rid of them, I've talked to all of them in the Cedar area anyway, and they'll take that tire for the same price and put it on their recycle plan as well. So the point of my discussion is, what are we going to charge, and how soon can we implement that in our landfill? I'd like to be $4 or $5 per tire. Anything over 24.5, it's stated in the law. I sent that to Chanel. She should have had that out to you guys. But on line 152 of that, of House Bill 27. I take that back, 156. Tires are exempt from, well, it says you can't have a tire bigger than 24.5 inches. I think those are the big truck tires, and they need to go to a different place.
That it?
Yep, that's it right there. So on line number 50, line 56 on there. So it'd just be my recommendation that we can get $4 or $5 per tire to help pay for taking these to the recycle. The state will help us the first time, and then in this in that act that I showed you, it says they'll help. They will continue to help on.
We'll have to call them, or they pick them up, we'll pay for it.
Yeah, either one. If we right now, Tina's got some people in play that'll come and pick them up if they have large tires, large tire piles already in municipalities. She's got contracted help that'll come and do it. And then right now the state, because we're a small county, will accept the whole thing. They'll pay for it all. But going forward, once that fund comes down, we'll have to split that cost.
So if I go to my favorite mechanic and I'm already paying the disposal fee, I guess you really can't predict the future on what that's going to look like once this thing gets implemented, huh?
So they don't take part of this. You're paying the $1 goes to the state, the rest goes to the disposal fee for that tire company to dispose of that tire. That's already happening. And that's really what they want to keep in play, is just let the system work and don't have a loophole. Basically, hey, I can take it to landfill for free.
What were they doing before? When we pay that fee, were the professionals having to take it to a place to get recycled, or were they They weren't taking it to your landfill.
No. We could only take them. Say you're doing a cleanup in your yard or your dad's yard or grandma's yard, and there's some tires there. We'd take them. We'd take them on rims. We can't take them on rims now because the tire recycle places won't take them on rims. There's been times where we have to go and clean them up. There's certainly times that people just throw tires out and we clean them up. So there's not all of that. Not every tire will be paid for. We hope that it is, but we understand that there's not that wouldn't happen.
So out of curiosity, what are these recyclers doing with that material?
The one that we do, they grind them up and they use it to heat the cement plant in Leamington. They use them for fires to produce that. And that's on the beneficial uses of waste tires. So that'd be a tire-derived fuel. And that's on that pamphlet I just handed you. Second page. They do a lot of different things with them. Some landfills are shredding them themselves, and that was one of the options that I proposed to the state, was if they bought us the 5-county area shredder, that we could use it for our alternative daily cover, but they opted out of that. That was just one of the things that was on the options with the state.
It's interesting. It says that it's cleaner and more economical than fuel than burning coal. That's interesting.
Yeah.
See a tire fire, there's a lot of smoke.
Right.
But that's what they would do with the ones that from our landfill, is they'd grind them up and send them to Leamington cement plant.
Bruce,
Yes, sir.
question. You said $4 or $5. I think we would probably look to you to tell us, what you felt would be the proper
I think
amount of the charge, so we could hopefully deflect most of the tires that would be, brought to the landfill.
so. I talked to the guys in town. I talked to the tire company, Big O Tire, and then Chris Stevens over at Midtown Tire and Auto, and they're charging anywhere from $2 to $3 a tire. I'd like to be $4 just so that it help promote leaving the tire with the tire companies. I don't think that's a hardship on most people. Realistically, if you have a set of tires, that'd be $16 that you'd have to bring out here, and then That would be my proposal, is $4 a tire.
Okay.
Based on
One
that.
other thought, if they're doing that statewide cleanup of large piles, we ought to get that on our county website and Facebook page so people will know that they can get those taken away for free for a period of time.
Well, that's only with municipalities. It's not with private
Oh, okay, I
individuals.
missed it. That's not private. Okay, I'm glad I asked that question so I can get the clarification.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it says cleanup of abandoned waste tire piles and waste piles at municipalities operated landfills are conducted through the competitive bid. And so it's not for private individuals. If they've taken tires,
Okay, good.
yeah, if they've taken tires hoping to recycle them or make money, that's their deal, I guess.
I see.
Any questions? So,
One question I had, maybe when this whole pandemic thing's over, we ought to organize a community cleanup again out on Highway 56.
that was good, wasn't it?
It was good, and it's getting pretty bad
I
again.
thought the exact same thing.
Right? You'd help us with that, wouldn't you? If we
Absolutely.
purchased some dumpsters and stuff. that we could-
Absolutely, do just like we did last time.
Yeah. What was that? A couple of years ago we did that, maybe.
2 years ago,
Two?
yeah.
Yeah, but it's getting bad again.
And I think we generated 14 tons of trash off.
Really?
Yeah, that's how much was there.
I don't know if it's maybe people hauling trash to probably a combination of that south wind where it hits the fence, but it's building up.
I noticed the same thing last week. There's quite a bit of stuff there.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks,
Time
Bruce.
for another sparkle campaign.
There you go. We'll deputize Fred Rowley again. Get him going on that.
Yeah, get Fred involved.
Okay. Thanks, Bruce.
Thanks.
See, agenda item 7, discussion and possible approval to apply for a quarterly OHV physical incentive grant from the Utah Division of Parks and Rec. Said grant will be used to maintain portions of the Color Country OHV Trail in Iron County. Mike Worthen.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Paul, before we move on, do we need to have a motion on that last deal with the tires to get that in our codified?
Just for the $4, is that what you talked about, Bruce?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'll entertain a motion. Let's just do it.
Okay, I move that we impose a $4 fee for used tires coming into the landfill, which hopefully will stop most of that from happening because that is higher than the cost to take them to a tire dealer.
I would second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to have Bruce Anderson with the county landfill, charge $4 per tire. That'll be $1 higher than the local tire shops, so we can encourage that business to stay with them. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Alma. Go ahead, Mike.
Okay, thank you. This grant that we're applying for is a quarterly physical incentive grant that the state Parks and Rec offers to the counties or to the local governments and nonprofit organizations. And it's up to $12,500 you can apply for. There is no required matching funds for this grant, but they do encourage some type of funding match for it. What this grant will do is we're proposing is to outline some trail construction that we can propose to the BLM in the future. It will allow for mapping changes on routes as you organize a travel route for OHVs. They change because of certain circumstances, whether it's private land or whether there's concern about species or whatever, and so we do make changes to those routes periodically, and this allows go in and do the trail description, update the maps, and repost the maps. Maintenance of repair on cattle guards. One thing that I have noticed over the last few weeks is that with everybody staying at home and getting cabin fever, we're seeing more travel out on the OHV trails. And with that travel, we've seen some vandalism or some destruction of the OHV cattle guards where people try and drive over them. They're not built to hold up that weight, and so they get mashed down, or they get hooked up under the vehicle as they go over them and high-centered, and so they try and drag them out or whatever. And so there's a couple of cattle guards we've got to replace. And also shooting of signs of trail markers and whatnot. So that's kind of an annual occurrence. Planning and design for the trail descriptions, a revision of the maps and routes and trail descriptions. And also Maria hires a part-time person to work with their maintenance on the parks, the county parks. And I've asked her if it would be possible through this grant that we use that person once a week, 1 day a week, and the grant would pay for that person, and she's agreeable to do that with what they've got. So that'll help in replacing markers and updating the trails and doing some trimming and maintenance on that. And then picnic tables to purchase 4 more picnic tables to be placed at mostly overlooks or places where you have a scenic situation where people like to stop and have lunch or whatever else. So that's the grant. The proposal is that Maria has agreed to kick in a little bit for the mapping and the brochures, and then the rest would come out of in-kind services that would be provided by myself, the OHV Club volunteers to help with a lot of these projects. So that's where a lot of the funding would come from. So it's really not costing the county any specific funding that is not budgeted for.
Very good. I read through this last night in depth, and looks good, Mike. Thank you. Is there any questions?
I would move for approval to apply for quarterly OHV fiscal incentive grant from the Utah Division of Parks and Recreation to be used to maintain portions of the Color Country OHV Trail in Iron County.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the application for a quarterly OHV grant as described. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thanks, Mike.
Okay. You want to sign this?
You bet. Just right here. Thank you.
John, I'll get you a copy of this.
Thank you. Great.
Okay. We doing okay, everybody? We're getting close. We
Yeah.
need a break of any
Well,
kind?
we were just going to wipe things down, but we did.
Okay, we good. Item number 8, review and approval of contract for HVAC equipment maintenance for the Iron County Courthouse in Parowan. Lester, you on?
He is.
Yep. Okay, what I have on there is you have 2 different contracts, one from Honeywell and one from Train. Really, this one's a pretty simple proposal. The Honeywell contract came in at $26,000 a year, and the Train contract is sitting right at just under $9,000 a year.
Wow.
And it's a 3-year contract. And so my recommendation is to go with Train. I did contact them after I got the Honeywell contract to make sure that they were covering similar coverage and that they would also cover the automation system, because that was my main concern. And they said that they added in the contract on that maintenance as well.
Does that include balancing and all that?
Yeah.
Okay.
That way they go, and it's kind of an extensive contract. If you go all the way through it, they have things they'll do quarterly, and then things they'll do annually in it.
Okay.
Can I ask a few questions?
Sure.
Lester, this is Mike. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
So that question that you had to make sure that the contract covered it, is it not clear in the contract that it does cover it?
It's clear now. It wasn't clear before.
So they've changed that?
They've changed it. Yeah, my original contract with them, it was not clear. And some of the equipment that Honeywell had listed, Train didn't have listed. And so I went through the contracts and made sure both of them were, covering the same equipment and had similar stuff. Yes, Honeywell's was a lot more extensive, but that's way too much money to pay a year to have someone maintain that system.
Right.
So.
In the past, I can't remember who the contractor was. We had an issue where I think the county was believing that a contract covered some form of maintenance and the contractor did not. And I just wanted to be careful that that's not going to be the case with this one. I also just wanted the commissioners to be aware, and I'm about to sneeze, so I'm going to try and. Excuse me. You guys that are far away from me are doing better than those that are close. So, in this, as with all contracts, when it's written by somebody else, there's always provisions that are more favorable to them than they are to us. I was just reading over the cancellation sections. I just want the commissioners to be aware that they can cancel for pretty much whatever reason they want. We're not able to. So you're pretty much committing to a 3-year agreement, as I saw this, with this agreement. So you're not going to really be able to back out without having to pay a penalty. I just want them to be aware of that.
Would you recommend?
In the Train contract, it was really good because they actually specified exactly how much we'll be paying in the 3-year period. And yeah, it is a 3-year contract.
Do we want to add a provision if we're not happy after each year that we can cancel, Mike?
Well, if you can you can ask them if they're willing to agree to that term, but the contract that they've prepared, it doesn't allow that.
What do you think, Lester?
I can ask him. There's no problem in talking with him about it.
Okay. I assume everything will be fine, but it might not hurt to have that in there in case we need to go a different direction if something goes awry.
Yeah.
What do you guys think, Mike and Alma?
I agree. That's reasonable.
Okay. Very good. Okay. Is that all, Lester?
Yep.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it. So we'll go ahead and entertain a motion on that. Can you guys hear? We need a motion on that one, right? We lose him?
Well, looks like Alan was talking, but I'm not hearing anything, but his lips are moving.
Oh, I'm sorry. I had it on mute. Okay. Now you can hear me. My lips are moving, but nothing. Sorry. Okay.
Did your
I
wife
move
mute you, Alma, or was that
approval
you
of
that
the
muted?
Train.
Oh, sorry.
Can you hear me now?
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I have approval of the contract for the HVAC presented to us by Lester. Go to Train, annual pricing of $82.96.20. Did I hear wrong? I thought he said the total 3-year agreement was $9,000. Is that? Oh, did he say less than $9,000 per year? Is that what he said?
What was the total amount, Lester, for 3 years?
The total 3-year amount, let me pull that up real quick. Sorry. I have to jump screens. Your total 3-year amount is $24,888.60.
Okay.
Okay. All right. I move approval of that contract in the amount stated for Train.
Second.
Are you going to try? I'm sorry, I'm not trying to interfere with this. I'm just wondering. There was some question as to whether or not we're going to try and do the year a negotiated way to get out after a year if we're not satisfied with that? Are you wanting to approve it as it's written right now, or are you suggesting that we're pursuing that other provision?
I'll add that to my motion. Thank you. That I move approval contingent upon Lester talking with Train to see if they would be willing to add a clause that we would be able to opt out after a yearly review during the 3-year period.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the contract with Train for the HVAC equipment maintenance for the Iron County Courthouse in Perron for a total of $24,888.60, with a clause that allows us to cancel the contract if we're not satisfied with the services. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thanks, Lester. Okay, we'll go to item number 9, personnel. Jennifer Bradbury.
Good afternoon. I'm going to put this back here. First, I wanted to bring to your attention our office has received a dividend check from Workman's Comp in the amount of $11,185.70, which was submitted to the offices for deposit. And that was for 10% of the 2019 earned premiums. And they sent that early because of the financial disturbance of COVID. So that's been submitted.
We did get a bill from them, which is higher than
Which is probably higher. You're right. I wanted to have some good news.
It is nice to have a dividend though.
It was good news for a second, right?
Sun's Company got one, and it's nice to get a check back.
It's not always nice, even though, yeah, you're right. And then we'll move on to personnel here. In the assessor's office, Braden Beaumont has completed the training to be promoted from a trainee appraiser to an appraisal apprentice beginning 4/6/2020 with corresponding pay to fall within county guidelines. And then also in the assessor's office, Jessica Huntington received a new certification, and we're requesting a pay rate adjustment beginning 4/20/2020. And then in the Iron County Attorney's Office for your approval is Trajan Evans, who was selected from the most recent competitive recruiting and interview process to backfill for the vacant Deputy 2 position beginning 4/20/2020. And in the Iron County Jail for your approval is Charles Roundy, who was selected from the most recent competitive recruiting and interview process to backfill for the vacant Deputy 1 training position beginning 4/12/2020. And then last but not least, in the Iron County Sheriff's Office for your approval is Jaden Thomas, who was selected for the most recent competitive recruiting and interview process to backfill for the vacant victim advocate position beginning 4/20/2020 as well.
Okay. Is there any discussion on this agenda item?
No, none for me.
Okay.
I would move for approval, starting with the assessor's office, the approval of promotion for Braden Beaumont to be promoted from a trainee appraiser to an appraisal apprentice beginning 4/6/2020 with the corresponding pay raise. Also approval of pay rate for Jessica Huntington due to a new certification achieved effective 4/20/2020. Moving on to the attorney's office, approval of new hire Trajan Evans as a Deputy Attorney 2, and note that is a backfill of a vacant position, and that to begin 4/20/2020. In the jail, approval of new hire Charles Roundy as Deputy 1 trainee. Note that that's a backfill of a vacant position, and his starting date would be 4/12/2020. Then moving on to the Sheriff's Department, approval of new hire Jaden Thomas as a victim advocate, and note that that is also a backfill of a vacant position, and that job will be starting 4/20/2020.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded in regards to the changes in the personnel department as described by Commissioner Blake. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Jennifer. Appreciate that. You want me to sign those?
This is just the copy of the check.
Okay. While I'm signing this, we're going to skip a little bit. We're going to go to non-delegated items first. Do we have any prairie dog issues or county board issues?
Don't have any.
Oh,
Okay, then we'll jump back to
10?
item number 10. What do I do with my paper? Just put it on there.
10.
Number 10, discussion and possible decision regarding the appeal of a recent employee disciplinary action. And this part of this discussion may be closed per UCA 52-4-20 or 205-1A. So do we move to go into closed session yet, or do we want to talk about it first, Mike?
You probably want to go in the closed session first. And the motion needs to be, you need to specify that it would be closed for the purpose of a discussion of the character, professional competence, physical or mental health of an individual.
Character,
Okay, I move we
competence.
go into close. You ready for a motion?
Does that need to be in the motion?
Yeah, Alan's asking if you're ready for a motion.
Yes, Alma, go ahead.
Move we enter into closed session for discussion of the competent mental.
Character,
Tell me all the-
professional competence, physical or mental health.
Okay, that what Mike said for those purposes per UCA 52-4-2051A.
second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to move into closed session to discuss the character, competence, mental and physical health of this employee. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, we'll move into closed session. Yep. We'll need to have you leave. And
We need to turn
Minute.
off YouTube stream
no, thanks, Dan.
and make sure that nobody else is on the GoToMeeting.
Okay, so
Thanks, Bill. John. So
Well, what it does is it streams we're in executive session screen. So the stream
I
wasn't
see.
going that whole
I
time.
see. Okay,
So now we're back to the stream going.
we're live now.
We declared the end of the closed session.
Okay, we've declared the end of the closed session we've held, and we are now in reconvening our county commission meeting. I think all of the agenda items have been covered, so we will declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you. Appreciate your attendance.
Commissioners, are you still on?
I'm not ended.
Yeah.